Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show, a Paul solo record today. Later tonight, Jack, Ziggy, and Zach will be coming over. We're doing an NFL Combine preview episode. That'll be a ton of fun. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this content. We finally got back over 18,000, so we've been kind of, flip-flopping over that 18,000 mark. We're back over it right now, hopefully for good this time. Appreciate everyone who's subscribed to the channel. It means a lot to us. You can always follow us as well on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We have more content coming out there. If you can't listen or watch on YouTube, you can always listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again to everyone who participates. If you leave comments, we see them all. We can't respond to every single one, but we do implement a lot of your guys' ideas into the show. We'll send a screenshot into the group chat. So even if you don't see a response, please know that that is noticed and that is taken to heart, and we do consider every single comment we see. So if you have anything you want us to talk about, look, the offseason's the time to experiment with things. Let us know. It can even be beyond football. We could add in some segments towards the end of shows. Whatever you think, or expanding into other sports, let us know what you're interested in hearing, and we'll see if we could get it into an episode. Today, I wanted to focus on the NFC North. We've kind of gone away from the NFC North for a bit. We're going to get back on that. We're still a football show, guys, right? We're still an NFL show, but we're going to try to prioritize the NFC North a little bit more heading forward because that's where most of our listeners are right now. So it's not, if you're a Texans fan, I know we have a Texans fan group that listens, like we're still going to do content on the rest of the NFL, okay? We're just doing a little bit more NFC North in every episode as well. So please, let us know in the comments what you want to hear us talk about. We're talking about all the NFL. I want to start with Brian Gutekunst and the Packers. He met with local reporters at the NFL Scouting Combine on Tuesday. And the big topic around Green Bay, what's starting to gain a little momentum, is will they actually go after someone like Myles Garrett or Aiden Hutchinson or Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals? So what Gutekunst said is it depends who that edge rusher would be. And a reporter asked Gutekunst if he would throw some names around, and he said, if they're on other teams, no, while smiling. So that makes you think, all right, we're talking about Garrett, Maxx Crosby, Trey Hendrickson. And a lot of Packers fans have given numerous reasons why they don't think Green Bay will make such an aggressive move. Some of the primary ones are, well, we're hosting the draft in Green Bay, so we're never going to give up the first round pick in a draft that we're hosting. That's not happening. The NFL wouldn't want it. The Packers wouldn't want it. And second, people are saying that's not how the Packers operate. That the Packers hold on to the picks. And if you look through their history, Green Bay very rarely will trade away draft picks like this, valuable draft picks. And you know what? I have to say, it's understandable, right? Like the Packers are one of the most successful franchises in the NFL. Holding on to your draft picks is a smart strategy. Like the Vikings right now have 3-4 picks this season in this draft. That does hurt you. And when you've hit at the rate the Packers do, especially in the later rounds, like look at that team. Look how they've built it up through the later rounds of the draft, through having a high volume of picks. The Lions have done this. The Eagles have done this. A lot of these competitive teams right now build up through the draft. So I'm not going to get on anyone who says, I respect holding on to picks. I will say that I disagree with you if you're going for a superstar like a Myles Garrett or a Maxx Crosby or a Trey Hendrickson. These are guys who are game changers, and the Packers need game changers. That's why I've been on all offseason. Great team, very good team in Green Bay, but they need game changers, guys who can wreck a game in seconds. Jalen Carter did that for the Eagles in the NFC divisional round. When the Rams were driving down the field with an opportunity to steal that game, Jalen Carter said, nope, blew up Matthew Stafford on 2 straight plays. Saved the day. Because the Eagles coasted through the playoffs, but that was the moment right there. That, to me, was the defining moment of their Super Bowl run, was Jalen Carter taking over and winning that game at the end against the Rams. Do the Packers have a guy who can do that? I don't think so. Rashawn Gary was your sack leader with 7.5 sacks. After that, you had, I believe, Wyatt had 5. And no one else on the team had 5 sacks. Trey Hendrickson had 17.5. Myles Garrett had 14. Maxx Crosby had 7.5, like Rashawn Gary, but he only played 12 games. Like these are guys that come in and change an organization. So you shouldn't, in the back of your mind, be thinking, hey, I'm just going to hold on to this pick because that's what we normally do. And then secondly, the Green Bay thing is ridiculous. Hosting the draft in Green Bay should have no dictation whatsoever over whether the Packers will make a move that will be better for their organization. And actually, they asked Gutekunst about that. And frankly, he said that he has full permission. I think Mark Murphy came out there and was like, yes, you could trade the pick. So obviously these are external discussions. Who knows what's actually happening internally? But I would be stunned if the Packers had a trade package that was put together that they thought was best for their organization to go after a guy like Myles Garrett, and they decided not to do it for the sake of holding on to an extra pick so that on night one of the NFL draft, they can make a pick in Green Bay. Like, that's like, when you say it out loud, it just sounds ridiculous, right? There's no way that would happen. And if you're the Packers, again, when you look up and down your roster, if you could fill one of your biggest needs with one of the best players in the league, you're going to do that. And it seems like the door is opened. Now, I'm sitting back here as a Viking fan thinking to myself, like, this can't really be happening. You know, the thought of Myles Garrett wearing a Packer uniform hasn't really settled into my head right now. But last night, as I'm doing research in preparation for this show, I started thinking to myself, like, what would that look like if you added Myles Garrett to this team? And all of a sudden, I was like, oh shit, like that, this actually can't happen. You know, it's fun talking about it on the show and people enjoy listening to it. It'll get us some views. It'll be engaging discussion because we're talking about one of the best players in the league to a big rival. But then when you actually sit back and you go, like, it's kind of like when Jordan Love, when I realized that he actually was good. I exactly remember I was driving, locally here. And all of a sudden, it's during his run 2 years ago. And I just sat back in the car. I was like, oh shit, he's good. Like, this could be trouble for the future. And I had that exact same moment last night with Myles Garrett in a Packer uniform. And it seems, you know, just from Gutekunst, from Murphy, the way everyone's talking, that they're going to try to do this. And I know that the Browns are saying they won't trade Garrett. Ziggy was mentioning how the finances won't work. I haven't dove too deep into that, but you can always make finances work, right? You can always make it work. So I think it's on the table here for the Packers. And if they don't go for it, you know, that's not detrimental to the team. They still have a great roster, a young roster. You always hear people talk about how young the Packers are. And I'm getting over that conversation a little bit because while they are very young, like, it's great that they're young. And I think everyone should be happy that this is a super young team, but they're also experienced now. Like, this team that went to the playoffs 2 years ago and should have beat the 49ers, they have 2 years of playoff football under their belt. 2 playoff runs, right? Or runs to the playoffs in the regular season under their belt now. So they are very young, but they're more experienced in the playoffs than a lot of teams in the league, than a lot of players in the league. Not a lot of guys go to back-to-back playoffs early on in their careers. So especially among young guys that are experienced. And then in general, you know, no one in the Bears has been to the playoffs for a while. The Vikings roster last year, very different from the team that went with Kirk Cousins a few seasons ago. So we can talk about Green Bay being young, but they are experienced. So I think everyone would agree that this team is almost there. But what can help push you over the edge is that star potential. And that could be in the form of Devontae Adams. It could be in the form of Myles Garrett. It could be in the form of a Maxx Crosby. But you have a lot of money to make moves this year. And while everyone's saying there's not a lot of star power, there is enough star power that the Packers can take advantage of this window that's open for them. It's not, you know, I don't think it's a huge opening right now. The NFC is a very good conference, and there are still some questions in Green Bay. But you just got to be happy you have the chance. Like, how many teams in the league would kill to be in the Packers' position? Most of them. Super young team with playoff experience, with some star power, great head coach. You're right there. Go make the move. If you're talking about it, if you're thinking about doing it, just go do it. All right. We'll see what winds up happening, but I think the Packers, they're in a great situation here. And they're going to make a big splash this offseason. I know they generally play it conservatively, but it just, something feels a little different. I think most Packers fans would agree with that. There's this almost urgency to it. And I think that that's good to have. You know, our good friend Weston Dell, big Bears fan, he always talks about the importance of urgency in football. You see it all the time, right? When you're watching teams in the midst of comebacks, there's that urgency that wasn't there. I'm starting to feel that a bit with Green Bay. Last year it was appreciation for a great season. And it was, you know, hey, we went on the road and upset the number 2 seeded Cowboys. Should have beat the 49ers. Love played great down the stretch. Bright future ahead. It was all, you know, rainbows and sunshine in Green Bay. But after last year, a year where you did improve your record, You can't forget that. You improved your record. Didn't go as far in the playoffs. Offense stalled out towards the end of the year, but the defense got better too. A lot of positive takeaways. I do think that there's a greater sense of, hey, we need to be able to do more with what we have right now. And that's a really good thing if you're a Packer fan. There needs to be that sense of, hey, this team is too good to not win a playoff game. You're a little bit unlucky that you're in a division with a 15 and a 14 win team. That probably won't happen again next year. But there's a window for Green Bay that they need to capitalize on, because you never know. You never know when it's going to close. And I think they're going to go after it. We might talk about this briefly tonight, but the tush push, Green Bay put in a proposal to ban the tush push, which I think is ridiculous. The Eagles are great at it. You saw the Bills lose the AFC Championship game because of their failure to convert on short distance situations. Whether or not you think that the refs played a part in it, it was close enough that they didn't get the call. The Eagles have a distinct advantage because their offensive line knows what they're doing, and they have one of the best quarterbacks ever, probably the best quarterback ever in short yardage situations. That's an advantage to them. I know some people don't like it, and there's a potential for injury. There's a potential for injury on a lot of plays in football. If you're good at something like that, other teams need to learn how to stop it. Or maybe the Eagles are just one of the best teams to ever do this, and it won't happen again. So I have no problem with the tush push. We'll talk about it again a little bit more tonight because Ziggy was excited, but Brian Gutekunst said he hasn't put much thought into it, so that's clearly not coming from him. That's a little probably upper management there in Green Bay. I have no issue with the tush push. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jaire Alexander here, and we'll transition to another team as we get into this topic. But Jaire's played in only 16 to 37 potential games over the past 2 seasons. And that's due to 4 different injuries that he's had and a 1-game suspension. So he's been all over the place. Everyone knows when he plays, he's one of the best in the league, but he just hasn't been on the field lately. He is the 3rd highest cap hit on the team after Jordan Love and Rashawn Gary. He's still only 28, so that's good. Like he's still got a couple more years probably of really good football in him. But by cutting him, you save $6.8 million in cap space, and you don't have to deal with this headache that's been going on for a while. You know, Gutekunst said Jaire's frustrated. I'm sure the Packers are frustrated. It's been a roller coaster with Jaire, especially since he was an all-pro a few years ago. Just not playing it is difficult. And this gets me excited as a Viking fan. I love seeing the rumors, and it looks like they're going to come true that Green Bay is going to cut Jaire. I think it's a mistake. Ziggy's mentioned this time and time again. There's no way that Green Bay cornerback room is going to be great next year without Jaire. They can be good and they could get by. They could still go on a deep run to playoffs. But Jaire's one of the best in the business. And for that unit to be exceptional, you probably need Jaire on the field so that whoever you're bringing in is a complement to him and not a replacement. That's really important. And if you get rid of Jaire, you're starting from scratch. That room is being totally rebuilt. Outside of Keyshawn Nixon, who claims to be a number 1 cornerback. I don't know if anyone would actually agree with that, although he had his moments. But I don't know how confident I'd be with Keyshawn as my number 1 cornerback. But as a Viking fan, this makes me very excited. Because we have guys like Brett Favre. We have guys like Ryan Longwell and Greg Jennings. And more recently, I don't know if you guys remember Aaron Jones. He used to play for the Packers. He's a Viking Ring of Honor guy probably. Just a few names of the Packer greats who have come over to Minnesota towards the end of their career. Oftentimes having great seasons. I mean, Brett Favre, best season of his career with the Vikings. Ryan Longwell, fantastic. Darren Sharper's another guy. I'm trying to think if there's some more Packers. I'm sure there are more that I'm forgetting right now. But could Jaire Alexander be the next one? And if the Packers do cut Jaire, he seems like the kind of guy that would want to stick it to the Packers. I don't know too much about Jaire's personality, but anytime I've seen him in interviews or heard Packers fans talk about him, he seems like the perfect mold for someone who would say, screw you guys, I want to play you twice a year, and I'm going to go over to Minnesota, who needs cornerback help. Right? That's the Vikings' probably biggest need this offseason is fixing the secondary. Harrison Smith might retire, although it's starting to look like he might come back. Cam Bynum's a free agent. I'm kind of thinking he's out the door right now. The big fish is Byron Murphy Jr., who Packers fans even have an eye on him. So there could be this like little give and take swap potentially if the Packers go in aggressively on Byron Murphy Jr. But it seems like the Vikings are going to basically put forth all their chips to bring back Byron Murphy, who had a Pro Bowl season. He was fantastic last year. But you need a second guy. Like, you just do. And Shaq Griffin might be gone. Stephon Gilmore's probably gone. So the Vikings, whatever happens with safety, we'll see. But for cornerback, let's say they do re-sign Byron Murphy, you got to get another guy. Because you got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the Eagles. You know, the Lions have this two-headed monster with Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Packers have so many guys, and I think they're going to bring in another one. The Bears even, with the Dunze and DJ Moore. Like, this is an NFC that has a lot of talent at receiver. And you need to have more than one cornerback. This is why I'm not so happy, if I were a Packer fan, letting Jaire walk. But as a Viking fan, if they went after Jaire, I'd love that pairing of Byron Murphy Jr. and Jaire Alexander, especially if you could get Jaire on this 1-year prove-it deal. Look, I'd love to ink him for a couple seasons, maybe get him for 2. But Jaire's going to want to bet on himself, and frankly, the Vikings won't want to put too much into Jaire, who hasn't been on the field. So, this could be really beneficial for other teams who are looking for a cornerback, in that they have a lot of leverage over Jaire if Green Bay cuts him. And it's all about the injuries. So you get Jaire on a prove-it deal with Byron Murphy Jr., you get a mad Jaire Alexander, I'd be pumped up, man. Give him to Brian Flores, see what they do. You have Dallas Turner, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel. Those monsters rushing the passer with 2 lockdown cornerbacks, especially. Look, again, he needs to stay healthy, okay? So any Packer fan who comes in here is like, well, yeah, have fun with him. He's a head case who's never on the field. You're totally right if he doesn't play. I can't operate under the assumptions that guys are going to miss most of the season when we're talking about going after them. Now, look, I could be wrong for this because Jaire's always out, but in my mind, he's going to play. And that's just the mindset I'm going to have. So you could get mad if you want, but Jaire Alexander, Byron Murphy Jr., I like that. I like that a lot. It's been a long time since the Vikings have had a pair of shutdown cornerbacks. Really, since Trey Waynes was... Trey wasn't a shutdown cornerback, but Trey had a really good season back in 2017 when Xavier Rhodes was arguably the best cornerback in football. It's a different feeling. When you have guys on the outside who you're like, yeah, we could shut down just about anybody. It's different than these past few years. Lions fans probably know what I'm talking about here. There's been some seasons where the Vikings have just been torched in the secondary. And you can't win when you're allowing 350 passing yards a game. I remember Mike Glennon? Who was it? Whoever the hell the Jets had when they were one of the worst passing teams in the league, came in and just lit us up. Like everyone, Daniel Jones, we handed Daniel Jones. If you've been listening to the show long enough, I believe this. The Vikings are responsible for the Daniel Jones contract because he was okay in most games that year. But against the Vikings, he threw for like 650 yards. He was unstoppable. But that's because our defense was horrible. You need these cornerbacks. I'd love to go get Jaire. Oh, that'd be so much fun, especially if he was stayed healthy, went into Lambeau. Pairing him up with Justin Jefferson would be kind of fun too. Seeing those guys would make each other better. Just a couple more topics here. I want to hit on the Lions and Bears too, because I feel bad if I only go Packers and Vikings. I've been seeing a lot of people, whether it's podcasts or articles, saying how the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. And it's understandable. They won the Super Bowl. Their defense was dominant. Jalen Hurts played awesome. The Eagles have every right to be called the best team in the NFL, let alone the NFC. But on all these podcasts, people are talking about chasing down the Eagles. I just think we're forgetting about Detroit a little bit. Like, Detroit should be mentioned in that same conversation. When you say, hey, we're chasing down Philly, it should be Philly and Detroit. And we'll see if that changes as the offseason goes on. But we can't forget how decimated Detroit was. They had a really bad game. I mean, they had a bad game against Washington. That's where the defense couldn't do anything at the end of the year. But they're getting a lot of guys back. Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader will be back. Anzalone will be back for the full season. They're going to have to fix up the secondary a bit, and that's one place where Philly has a big advantage. The Philadelphia cornerbacks in particular are a lot better than what Detroit has right now. Detroit safeties are probably the best in football. But you look up and down this Lions roster, and I don't I don't care that they lost the coordinators. I don't care that the coaching staff was poached this offseason. This is a really good team. And we can't forget about that. Lions fans, you can't expect a 15-2 season again, but I think they're going to be pretty dominant. So when we're talking about the top dogs in the NFL next year, the Lions must be mentioned with the Eagles. If you're going to throw the Chiefs in there, the Lions have to be tier 1, top tier contenders for next season. And if it was all Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn being brilliant, and Dan Campbell was just more of a motivator, then yeah, they're probably going to take a step back. But we're going to have to wait to see that. Right now, given what we've seen from Detroit the past few seasons, I have no expectation of them dropping off that much. I think they're going to be a tough out for anybody. We were robbed of that Lions-Eagles matchup that a lot of people wanted to see. Now, I didn't care. Once the Vikings are out, I'm like, screw this. I want maximum sadness. So I was happy to see the Lions lose. I also wanted to see Philly lose too. But we're on track to get that next year with Detroit and Philly. Those have to be the two top tier teams in the NFC heading into the season. And last but not least, the Chicago Bears, who I actually do think should be pretty excited heading into this offseason. Now, I know a lot of people listening to this show, we got Vikings fans, Packers, Lions, a lot of NFC North fans who don't want to see the Bears be happy and actually enjoy Bears fans getting their hopes up only to be let down. But this offseason feels like it could be different. Like, this really is the Bears' chance right now to get out of the rut they've been in for a really long time. They've got $80 million in cap space. They have 4 picks in the first 72 of the draft. And you can say, yes, this is a weaker draft class, weaker free agency group. Half the NFL has over $40 million, so you might have to overpay for free agents who aren't necessarily worth it. But look, there's the opportunity here for the Bears to get a lot better pretty quickly. Because when you have the quarterback, things can change rapidly. And I said this on the last show about CJ Stroud in Houston, right? Everyone thought the Texans were going to be picking number 1 overall for back-to-back seasons. Stroud comes in, or sorry, they were 2 with Stroud, but Stroud comes in, completely changes that organization overnight. When you have a young quarterback, Washington, right? Jaden Daniels last season. I know that's what the Bears wanted. Jaden Daniels came in, flipped a switch. Now everyone's talking about the Commanders as an huge NFC threat for the years to come. If your quarterback steps up to the challenge and he's able to find that next gear, like Caleb, they're hoping that Caleb can do, things can change rapidly. Do you believe in Ben Johnson? That's another question here. Think about the turnaround that Jared Goff had after being basically thrown out of LA. A lot of people think he's a top 10 quarterback in football. And whether or not you think he's top 10, he's damn close. Everyone has to agree on that. Ben Johnson comes into Chicago. This feels like this last-ditch effort almost for the Bears. So if it doesn't work now, it's never going to work. I was talking to my buddy Josh, and he was saying it's like James Gunn going from Marvel to DC. This is DC's shot here. If it doesn't work with James Gunn, are they actually ever going to be able to put out another like captivating movie again in this universe? Who probably not. So that's how I'm viewing the Bears situation this year. If it doesn't work now with the quarterback of your choice, with the head coach of your choice, a GM that you generally like, tons of cap space, a lot of good draft capital, you have to make, at some point, it has to work. And this is the best opportunity on paper that the Bears have had going into a season for a bright future that I can remember. I mean, anytime they had Jay Cutler, I know they made an NFC Championship game, but Jay Cutler had limitations. Mitch Trubisky, I never really believed in. Justin Fields, I actually was high on Justin Fields for a little bit, but that quickly fell down. Like, this is the opportunity. You got the coach, you got the quarterback, you have the opportunity. It has to work now, and I actually think it will. This is probably just a Viking fan talking who always in the offseason tries to find optimism. I mean, that's what we're bred to do as Vikings fans. When the season crushes us, we have that little month off. Usually we have like 2 months off before the Super Bowl. So I'm probably being a little too optimistic about Chicago. But I just like what they're doing right now. And I think that they're in a good position here. I like that they're starting over with Caleb. You heard Ben Johnson talk about it. From cadences and huddle communication. I mean, we're really stripping things down to the basics here. And this is a team that needs to be stripped down to the basics. They haven't been really competitive in a long time. Even the team that went 12-4 a few seasons ago, or I guess at this point it's like 6 years ago, that was a heroic defensive performance. And I thought Matt Nagy was really creative that year with Mitch Trubisky and a limited offense. Like, that team was good, but they never really, to me, felt like they were, and everyone outside of Chicago, they were never a team that was seriously going to compete. They just weren't. And this year, I don't think they're going to compete this year for the Super Bowl, but it seems that the foundation has been established for Chicago to go into the future with optimism. And that's something that Bears fans haven't been able to say for a long time. So one of the biggest issues is going to be fixing that offensive line, something that they've struggled with for a long time now. I liked that Ben Johnson noted the Panthers' turnaround when they signed Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt just an offseason ago. They asked him, hey, can you fix an entire offensive line in one offseason? He's like, hey, look, Carolina made some big movements on the interior. Chicago's probably going to have 3 different starters from the week 1 interior offensive line next season. Completely new cast in all likelihood. That has to happen, though, because they weren't good enough. Caleb was sacked 68 times, right? I think it was 68 times. 14 more than anyone else in the league. I'm going to have to check my numbers there, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is off the top of my head. Like, that can't happen. You can't have a rookie quarterback under that much pressure. Look at Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. The Eagles were living in his face. 38% of the plays that they dropped back on Kansas City, Mahomes was under pressure. Now, he made a lot of mistakes himself in that game. I thought the interception to Cooper DeJean, bad read, bad throw from Mahomes. Didn't see Cooper. Kind of like Caleb this year. Caleb made a lot of mistakes himself too. But it's hard to get too on him when he was consistently under duress and consistently receivers were not getting open. There was a lot in Chicago that was not Caleb's fault. A lot was, but a lot wasn't as well. And you need to button that process up from the top down. And it seems that that's what they're going to do in Chicago this offseason. It'll probably take more than a few months. So you see Chicago in September next year. I'm not expecting Caleb to come out and be playing like Jaden Daniels immediately. That's like, it's just not going to happen. But this is something that as the season goes on, again, you just want to see Caleb get better and better and better. But this year you really need to see it. Because this past year, there were ups and downs. I don't think Caleb, at no point did I really look and say, oh, like that's the guy right there. Jaden Daniels had those moments. You need that next season at some point. Now, like by Thanksgiving, that seems to be the bar right now. Second season, Thanksgiving. You got to see it. I'd be very surprised if we don't see it by Thanksgiving of this season with Caleb. At least some flashes, right? And then you get, and it's nice too to have some stability. So hopefully you get a couple seasons with Ben Johnson and Caleb can get things going with Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, a very talented team in Chicago. I think they're right there. But this does feel like the shot to have organizational stability and success. All right, that'll wrap it up. NFC North show, quick show. I don't know how long this one wound up being. I did start and stop for several different things throughout it. But we'll be back tomorrow. Ziggy, Paul, Jack, and Zach, full cast and crew, talking a little bit of the Combine, some of the NFC North team needs in the Combine, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Titans #1 overall pick, Ashton Genty. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll see you then.